Jen Roesch, socialistworkers.org contributor and member of the International Socialist Organization. Jen writes, since the end of the primaries, and long before actually, there's been a chorus of complaints from liberals about Bernie Sanders supporters who hesitated to fall in line behind Hillary Clinton. They have been derided as ridiculous, childish, and entitled for failing to understand the realities of the system. But their anger is fueled precisely by the fact that they do understand those realities. Sanders spent the last year exposing the Democrats as a party of the wealthy and powerful. His supporters are right to be skeptical, even bitter, at the idea that a vote for Clinton will have any meaningful impact on their lives. It isn't that Clinton simply is the candidate of Wall Street. The inequality in this country is so widely felt that people instinctively understand this election will do little to change things. Even those who hope that Clinton will at least do less damage than Trump. There is a growing sense that the so-called radical political change dismissed as unrealistic by Sanders' critics is the only solution to the multiple crises we faced. It is this deeper vein of anger, one that goes far beyond this election cycle, that Sanders tapped into. But for the generation of Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter, the Sanders campaign wasn't its first attempt to fight for that change. The last 5 years have seen many struggles that emerged seemingly out of nowhere, but receded just as quickly. It has been difficult to translate these into sustained movements capable of winning lasting reforms, let alone posing a challenge to the system. But they have had a cumulative impact on consciousness. The Sanders campaign amplified this, but it also gave it a language, that of socialism. Interest in socialism has been growing for years, but few could have predicted how forcefully it would burst onto the political stage this year. Even if Sanders' socialism is far from my vision of socialism from below for millions of people, it has created a new way of thinking about the problems we face. This provides a framework for talking about the interconnected nature of our struggles and the potential for solidarity. By putting forward demands for the redistribution of wealth, it can provide a bridge between the massive anger that people feel and the kinds of struggles that could bring them into organized activity. But the question remains, with Sanders abandoning his call for a so-called political revolution and joining in the celebration of Democratic Party unity, where do we go next? Many people, including Sanders himself, believe we should draw the lesson that a socialist came close to winning the Democratic presidential nomination, and we should focus on running other progressive candidates. But despite running arguably the most successful insurgent campaign the Democratic Party has ever seen, Sanders was unable to shift the Democratic Party's 2016 presidential campaign and message even slightly to the left. Big disagreement from me on that last sentence. I think Sanders managed to shift the entire Democratic Party platform to the left. So I disagree with the writer here. Deeply disagree. Now, a party platform, a lot of people say it doesn't mean shit. It means nothing. It's all put out there for, the great unwashed. Me, you. But I disagree with the writer here when she says that Sanders was unable to shift the Democratic Party's presidential campaign. The hell he didn't. But let me go on. Instead, Clinton boasts about her endorsements from war criminals. Sure. Campaigns for Republican votes and assures Wall Street that she is their best friend. Sure. Sanders has been relegated to using his popularity to shore up the left vote for everything he campaigned against. To build on the radical potential of Sanders' campaign, we must break from the Democrats. Jill Stein's Green Party campaign is an important opportunity to register opposition to a system that tells us we deserve nothing better than the lesser of two evils. But the most important steps lie outside the electoral arena. This year showed that there are massive numbers of people open to socialism who aren't yet organized. We need to bring them into discussion and activity. Those who are inspired by Sanders are, in many ways, the potential future of a new socialist movement in this country. But there's nothing inevitable about the conclusions people draw from their experiences, whether they become active and are convinced that their own self-activity is indispensable. The process of discussion, debate, and organization is critical. The austerity, racism, and repression that have driven the radicalization haven't gone away. They will continue to deepen regardless of who wins the election. Fighting these will require sustained democratic struggles involving masses of people around concrete demands. It will also require a stronger and larger socialist organization that can provide an alternative to the system as a whole. None of this will be easy to accomplish, but we do know the best aspirations raised by Sanders' campaign can't be realized through the Democratic Party. The goal of the left should be to engage this new generation and create a political home for those who are ready to fight. The sense I get from this one, when the writer says, even if Sanders' socialism is far from my vision of socialism, I wish that Jen would have gone on and explained very briefly what her vision of socialism is, because that's going to be an issue. If any of this organizational stuff happens, if any of these discussions come about, I've been watching this for 40 years, 45 years. I've sat in on these discussions. I've sat in on discussions where consensus decision-making was the key to everything. I've watched the chaos. I've watched ideas try to manifest. I have seen socialist organization after socialist organization crash and burn, which is not to say that they'll continue to crash and burn. But I was part of the Atlanta Writers Collective here back in the 70s. And we had some hardcore, we had, Trotskyites, Stalinists, Democrats, nobody on the right, but the division was starting at the middle and working its way as far left as you could possibly go without falling off the fucking planet. And I used to sit on the discussions. We used to have these discussions about what the next issue of the paper was going to consist of, how far left we would go, who in the Atlanta Police Department or the power structure would be the next target for our writers, how we would present that writing, on and on and on and on. And in that process, I never once, and this was a heartbreaker to me, it was an eye-opener too, it left me apolitical for about 15 years. Because in those discussions, in that struggle, I never once saw a cohesive idea that had political power to it emerge. There's a lot of discussion about consensus decision-making, and when I worked in the environmental movement, I saw that work and things get done, but where it concerned pure politics, I never saw it. What I did see was an awful lot of vocalizing, a lot of fist in the air bullshit, a lot of yelling and placard carrying, all of which is good to get folks excited. But what comes after it?